Good afternoon, Monica Miller here, Legal Director and Senior Counsel for the American Humanist Association. This is Legal Tuesdays, where I answer your questions about separation of church and state. The question I'm taking today is from an anonymous student who says, my school has an FCA, so that's the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and the teachers at the school are regularly leading students in prayer at these club meetings. Is that allowed? The answer is no, it is not allowed. This is a really good question, and unfortunately it comes up a lot. We actually won a case against the Douglas County School District in Colorado over this similar issue. There are two mechanisms in which this is illegal. One is a statute called the Equal Access Act, and in it is a provision that says that when schools have student clubs, like chess club, French club, whatever, they are allowed to include religious groups in that, umbrella. But when they have a faculty sponsor, the sponsor needs to be there just purely as a warm body, as a custodian of the students. They cannot be participating in any of the religious exercises, and they absolutely, fundamentally cannot be leading in prayer. The other mechanism, of course, is why we're here today, the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The Supreme Court, in a case called Mergens versus Board of School, it was a school board case. I forget the name of the full case, but the court in Mergens said that the Equal Access Act that I just mentioned was constitutional when it was challenged, precisely because of the exception, the provision that says that teachers cannot lead or participate in religious student club meetings, because otherwise that transgresses the federal Establishment Clause, the Constitution, the First Amendment, because the First Amendment prohibits school teachers from indoctrinating school children during school hours, and these kind of clubs usually meet during school hours. The FCA is unfortunately a very aggressive, almost kind of like a bully when it comes into public schools, and kind of misleads administrations into believing that they are allowed to come in during school hours and be teaching students and giving teachers materials to administer to the students, and tracks and this and that. When we did our case in Douglas County, Colorado, and we were in the discovery phase of litigation, I've never had such extensive discovery before. We had tens of thousands of documents, many of which indicated a very deep level of involvement of school teachers and FCA coaches joining meetings in a non-custodial capacity, in a very participatory capacity. They were leading trips to Guatemala to indoctrinate children abroad to Christianity. They had teachers full on initiating and creating these clubs at the elementary schools. So, and this was in Colorado. I'm sure this runs, deep in other areas of the country too, including even in California. The other kind of club that we see is something called like an after school club. So that's where you get, Good News Club and these other kind of Christian groups that are allowed to meet, and even teachers, could even theoretically lead meetings with these kind of groups only if certain conditions are met. And one of those key conditions is that they're not there in their capacity as teachers. They're there way after school hours or before school hours, where the campus is being utilized solely as a venue for, raising funds. And so by the same measure that the Christian legal, groups, or the Christian Fellowship of Christian Athletes can meet on campus, let's just say they were an after school group, Good News Club is the most notorious group for this, then the school can't turn around and say the humanists can't meet here as well. So a teacher in their private capacity, in theory, could lead one of those after school clubs that are not connected to the school. But when it's a school club meeting during school hours pursuant to a student body, funds and part of the school curriculum, then it absolutely must comply with the Establishment Clause and the Equal Access Act. I hope that answered your question, and I look forward to answering the next question on the next segment of Legal Tuesdays.